Welcome to Reflections, a program where we discuss values and virtues for the transformation of the individual and the society in general. I am Father George Ehusani, and I have with me in the studio today Professor Titus Ibekwe. Prof, I used to have to shake hand, but in the age of coronavirus, I would just say welcome.
Thank you for having me, Father.
Professor Ibekwe is of the Faculty of Medicine, University of Abuja. He is Professor of ENT, Head and Neck, Rhinolaryngology. I mean, I need to be congratulated.
Congratulations.
Rhinolaryngology, ENT. Yes. He is also a public health professional and national chairman of Continuing Education Unit of the Nigerian Medical Association, right?
That's right.
And he's a medical politician. You were once vice president, national vice president.
That's right.
And I'm told you are in the race for the next one.
By His grace.
Prof, you know we're in crisis.
Yeah.
Our discussion today is about the crisis the humanity is in altogether. The COVID-19 epidemic, pandemic, pestilence, whatever we call it. And medical professionals are on the front line. Just a few days ago, I sent, on behalf of Terra and the Islamic Education Trust, I sent a big thank you note to all doctors and nurses and pharmacists and all health professionals that are on the front line. What is happening? People of my generation, a lot of people in this country, unless people who are over 100 years, we have never seen such a pandemic. We are told that the last time we had such an experience was 1918, and that it wiped out maybe 50 million people or whatever. And that even in this country, we lost a lot of people. Are we about to face the 1918 kind of influenza? What is happening? Now there is lockdown. Now our social life has been completely disrupted. We are not to, you came in here, we couldn't shake hand. Everything you touch, you are sanitizing your hand. Is this disease going to stay with us? Or is it some ill wind that is blowing and by the grace of God will go away in a matter of weeks?
Thank you very much, Father. This is really a very worrisome situation. And it is a global problem, not just a Nigerian problem. And unfortunately, the disease has come to be. But as you rightly said, it needs collective effort of each and every one of us. We all have roles to play to ensure that this disease will come and go. It is a viral infection, and as we know, with viral infections, they have like time limit within which they're active to
fizzle out
and cycle out.
By the way, before you continue, what's the difference between bacterial infection and viral infection? Some of us lay people, we don't know.
Well, these are all microorganism infections. In the microorganism world, we talk of bacteria, which is the commonest. Then we talk of viruses, we talk of fungus, we talk of protozoa and their likes. The difference here is that virus is a microorganism just like bacteria, but outside the human body. It is lifeless. Is it inanimate?
Outside the human body, it is lifeless. No life.
Yes, unlike bacteria, that outside human body
is alive.
It is alive. But this one outside human body is just there, like something that is inactive. But once it finds its way into the human body, occupies the cells, it assumes life. And they start multiplying in its hundreds and thousands and millions. They start competing with the human cells for life, for feeding, for nourishment. And that is where the fight starts. It takes somebody who has very strong immune system to
fight
be able to fight back and regain the normalcy in how the body system works. On the other hand, if the virus overpowers that human being, then you start talking of one tilting towards the other side of life. So that is one thing about virus.
By the way, but you say outside the human person, it has no life.
Yes.
How I even read in recent times, there's a recent finding that came out and said that it can survive in the refrigerator for 28 days. And that it can be on surface like plastic, like glass, like metal for between 48 and 72 hours and so on and so forth. What is keeping it alive? What is, okay, you say it's not alive, but how?
Still making it potent.
What's making it potent? If it has no life in itself.
Yes.
So how come it can exist on top of the surface, the railings of a door, the door handle? How come it can exist for 48 hours, 72 hours on metal and so on when it has no life?
But this is a special type of virus. I'm sure that our viewers must have been hearing envelope virus.
Envelope virus.
Yes, envelope virus. It is an RNA virus, an envelope virus.
So not a DNA virus, it's an RNA virus.
So it is special. It has a coat, like an envelope, that is encasing it. And that envelope contains basically lipids or fats. All right? Once there is a destruction in that envelope and the fat is destroyed or it starts leaking out, then it is destroyed. And
completely. That's what soap does.
That's what soap does. So when we're talking of viability, it's not as if when it's outside human body, it can still assume life and multiply in its number. It remains as it is.
Doesn't multiply outside.
It doesn't multiply. It remains as it is. But what we're talking of is ability to maintain that form that will still keep it so that when it enters into human cell, it will assume life. That's how long can it stay outside human body in that form. And that's what you have just explained now in different surfaces, different duration as research has shown. But interestingly, within the refrigerator, temperature 4 degrees and below, that it could be there for 1 full month. Wow. That is amazing. And that's why we're saying that the last has not been heard of this virus. We should not forget that it's just roughly 4 months away that it was
virus.
Discovered. Yes. So the scientific world are still learning so much. Information is still evolving about coronavirus. And having said that, what it means is that even our belief that, yes, the temperature, the environment, and all those may not matter so much. The weather of different climes may not matter. But this is a clarion call for us to think twice again. If this could survive within the refrigerator
for 28 days.
So low temperature for 28 days. But on surfaces, then they have variegated number of days that it could survive. And we know that extreme temperature, very hot temperature, also destroyed this.
Because if it is coated by fat, what it means is that fat melts before heat now.
Well, it doesn't really work that way, Father. Let's not go that direction. Common sense will say, yes, that fat will melt before
heavy,
heat, but we know that very high temperatures, yes, also inactivate this virus. And that's why this environmental issue, will still have to look into that. But the reality is that nature has a way, Creator has a way of protecting the weak. Obviously, there are some inherent factors within our environment that we are not 100% aware of. Because from information available to us, it appears that the variety of this infection that we have within our climate is mild compared to what we are seeing in other climates.
Let it be mild, though.
Yes.
If the people who have died now, still you are saying the thing is mild may be mild in our environment.
Yes.
Thank God, because if it was virulent, if it is not mild, then God save us. So let it be mild. And you are saying the variety or the strand of the coronavirus the strain.
Yeah.
So we have various strains. Those strains, is it on account of mutation? They mutate to a different strain, or is it that they were, can I say they were created, or how? Is it that as they move from one territory to the other, or from one person to the other, they, as you guys say, they mutate and change their structure?
Yeah, Father, it is a multiplicity of factors here that have some interplay. But it's worthy of note that coronavirus itself is not new in any way. Coronavirus in human was identified as early as 1960 and has been associated with over 50% of the common flu and cold that human beings suffer from. That is the reality. But the truth is that a strain, which is a transformation of the one that we know, is the one we are suffering from now that just came up in Wuhan towards the end of 2019. So it's a new strain, but it belongs to the same family, corona.
As SARS and influenza and so
on. SARS, MERS disease is the same corona, but this particular one is a new strain. And this transformation, we know it has to do with interaction within the human body, whereby we talk of changes in the nucleic format of this organism. It changes its form because we know that when it passes, for instance, from one person to the other, there could be some transformation, there could be some transmutation of a sort. So it changes its characteristics from time to time. But we cannot clearly say that this is what leads to this. And when it moves from lower animals to higher animals, for it to be able to adapt in such a way that it can affect higher animals, that means there has also to be some adaptability, some changes in its format to be able to infect human beings, because a lot of them are just lower animals that are synonymous with.
I was listening to the speaker yesterday who is an epidemiologist, public health epidemiologist, and she was talking about the fact that this could be one of the consequences of global climate change. That we are eating into all the reserved forestation, the Amazon dense region, the tropical forests of Africa, and in China and so on and so forth. We are eating into all this so much and so speedily that creatures, animals that had no contact with human beings before, we're getting into contact with them and destroying them and so on and so forth. So human beings are not used to certain creatures that we are now delving into their environment and dealing with, and their diseases we are picking up. We're beginning to pick up their diseases, and that this may be one of the consequences of a speedy depletion of our natural environment.
Yeah, Father, there have been a lot of theories out there, and nobody can beat his or her chest and say that theory ABC has been proven. Even some that are pointing towards some conspiracy,
conspiracy theories,
theory on the part of scientists, and some that are pointing towards nature, how we poach into the natural environment, how we process our food. Human beings are beginning to find fun in doing things that are very unnatural, even eating some animals raw, as it were, and all this.
I have seen some gory pictures.
Yeah, so that this could be part of what could lead to this. Some fingers are also being pointed towards bats and all this. So there are a lot of theories out there, but it is real. The reality is that a lot of changes in lifestyle and what we are doing, human beings being too invasive and being too inquisitive towards, nature, could have contributed to this. There's no doubt about it, but they are largely anecdotal.
No one can prove any of this.
Absolutely.
In our environment, we have survived dirty environments, dirty gutters, all kinds of things. Could we have gotten something similar, some similar viruses in the past, which could create maybe some antibodies for a number of people in this environment, apart from the virus itself mutating and changing, maybe to a weaker version in our environment? But could it also be that we have some, I don't know what to call it, some immunity, some measure of immunity on account of the kind of environment many of us have grown up in? Could that be a factor? I know, as you say, these are all anecdotal.
Yeah, but we can't shy away from discussing it, because that's where ideas are thrown up and researches expand. The reality, even in the transformation in the various strains, genetic sequencing that has been done has shown that they're all very close. The different strains, they are very close. That's why we are saying that there may be other inherent factors within environments that could contribute. As you rightly said, some adverse situations turn out to be advantageous if it is well explored. Yes, in Africa where we are living, you have mentioned that we're exposed to all sorts of diseases, all sorts of illnesses, and we survive over time. All this, we develop some immunity against such viruses.
Against similar
viruses, and the possibility of cross immunity cannot be completely ruled out. It is there. It is very, very possible. Even if you are looking at some other theories and suggestions that have been up there on the table, people are talking of BCG, countries who has been given BCG, which is the immunization.
May be better protected.
Yeah, which is immunization against tuberculosis. We know tuberculosis is not virus, quite all right, but that they are suspecting, going by the data that is evolving, that it may offer some level of protection. That is possibility. Even some of these drugs that have been put forward, and touted around, that they have seemingly they're showing some prospect towards the treatment of this illness, which is not proven. You realize that there have been some household drugs around us, which we have consumed over years.
Like the
anti-malaria drugs.
Yes.
We've consumed over years.
By the way, not just anti-malaria drugs from the orthodox medicine, but also anti-malaria drugs from the local communities, the herbs that they use, and so on and so forth. They are both sides are now implicated in helping in this.
In as much as we don't promote the use of herb, it's not for any reason, because not as if to say that they are not useful, because from some of these herbs, still the active ingredient that we use in drugs come from there. But the only problem is inability to purify and also quantify what should be taken. Sometimes, the best drugs, Father, remains the best poisons, but in the lowest dose. Any potential drug that is very active is a poison. And when you've not taking the active ingredient that you need from this herb that have 1,000,001 ingredient, including the ones that are toxic to some of our cells, like the kidney, the heart, and some organs, and you consume everything.
Yeah, but Prof,
it will be like trying to knock off the entire system.
I know, but what does it take? We have pharmacologists, we have pharmacy experts, we have pharmacologists, we have chemical industrialists, we have all these botanists, and so on and so forth. What does it take in our environment with all these resources we have for people to delve into this? I mean, I know, I don't know if you are familiar with the works of Father Dodo, Pax Herbal. For many years, had been working, and from collecting herbs, he later went and read pharmacology and working on how do you codify these things, and your concerns about getting the chemical compounds, how do you reduce the poison, what kind of processes. They are working on all that now. But I wish we had a lot more people who are actually experts in orthodox medicine and who look into our environment, because there's something about God supplies what we need in our environment. Correct. And then there is some study that I read that 65 to 70% of drugs used all over the world are taken, a lot of the active ingredients are taken from the tropics. Meaning that we have in our backyards what we need for a lot of the diseases that affect us here. So what is left is for our experts to do some of this research and so on. What is holding us?
Father, I'll just identify one thing. Very simple. It may sound simple, but it needs a lot of effort to be able to bring it on table and develop it and make it functional. The word is collaboration.
Collaboration?
Yes. Because we know that even over the years, the traditional setting has presented some platform. We see some things that appear to be working, but nobody knows the full scientific, mechanism behind it. But unfortunately, sometimes the herbalists, they are so secretive in hiding what they have. They should be encouraged to come up with some of these ingredients and collaborate with the scientific world so that you work together. You identify this herb, you bring it out. It will be tested in the laboratory. so that at the end of the day, we'll be able to, scientifically come out with, these are the active ingredients.
But Prof, you know that
this is what we got to do.
You know that until very, very recently, the scientific world, as you call, you guys, the experts, were so suspicious of these herbalists that it was not welcoming of the efforts that these herbalists were doing until very recently. So I'm happy that at least now we can be discussing this kind of thing, that there is some more openness to it. And I am familiar with the works of people like Professor Morris Iwu and others who are beginning to do quite some collaboration and digging into these herbs and see how we can do the scientific study. But when faced with an epidemic like this, we don't have 18 months. We don't have 18 months to go through the process.
Yeah.
Are there any provisions in emergency situations for some speedy research evaluation of some of the ingredients available in the environment to be quickly studied, let's say within 1, 2, 3 months, and go through some regime that can temporarily approve some of these herbs for use in our environment?
Okay, without digressing from the question you asked, which I will come back to, but I think there should be a platform, there should be, a basis that has to be explained first. The disease we are dealing with, which is COVID-19 presently, has no cure. That should be very clear. Mm-hmm. It is largely preventative. Prevention. And that is why what we have marshaled out, the hygiene, the cleanliness, the social distancing, and all those measures that we have put out, and indeed individuals identifying and making it a collective fight, so that anybody who within himself or herself feels some of these symptoms should even volunteer, come out and say that this is what I'm feeling. That is what is needed right now in order to be able to curtail this. We'll still talk about some other symptoms that people may look out for that has not been all that popular out there, but is gaining ground, if time permits, in this program. But having said that, coming back to what you have said, yes, there is room for that. But that's not still going to, in any way, there is no shortcut towards scientific investigations. There are processes, there are steps that must be taken in order to come out with a proof. Because for you to certify a drug fit to be consumed in curing any illness, there are steps that it has to pass through. Because human being is the highest level of creation, which we can't afford to toil with. That's why, apart from testing at the chemical and laboratory level, you may have to graduate up to lower animals, testing on them before you start talking of testing on human beings. Because each human life is so important and is so much precious that you can't afford to toil with it. But because there have been similar researches done in the past, as we said, corona is a family. Okay, so that is showing some very, very good prospect that we could shorten the process of researching.
That's my own
this.
concern, the shortening of the process.
You leverage on
what has been done before.
Earlier things done before on SARS and MERS diseases, since it is the same spectrum. And you now look forward to what you can do to step up. So the answer is yes. It is possible that we're going to even get drugs and vaccines earlier than ordinarily.
That is
ordinarily.
Prof, that's what I want to hear.
Given the platform that we already have on ground. But there's no shortcut to any of these things. It must follow the scientific
On that
processes.
note, we'll bring this segment of the program to an end. I have been speaking with Professor Titus Ibekwe, Professor of Otorhinolaryngology, ENT, head and neck, or is it neck and head? Head and neck. They are really concerned. A lot of the things coming, a lot of the symptoms of COVID-19, at least all the initial symptoms, they concern,
it's within the realm of ENT. A lot
of
people do not know that loss of taste and loss of smell, early loss of smell and taste, are very important and could be the first red flag that you get.
Even before you start having fever.
Before you start having fever and other symptoms.
If you lose taste and lose smell, please call Center for Disease Control.
Absolutely.
That you may be having a problem, but may God protect you all. We'll bring this segment to an end. I've been speaking with Professor Titus Ibekwe of the University of Abuja, Faculty of Medicine, and we would need to have another segment to discuss further on this COVID-19. God bless you.